If you've been doing the healing, the shadow work, and even journaling, and you still feel stuck, this message is for you. Right now, you may feel like my energy is stagnant. I feel like I've come so far on my spiritual path, and right now I feel kind of at a standstill. What is going on? Is something happening? Am I no longer ascending? And I want you to know that this is very common on the spiritual path. I think when we first wake up, many times we may feel like, hey, I'm doing awesome. Like, I'm discovering all this ancestral trauma, inner child trauma, past life trauma, and I'm working through that. I'm working through breaking the past and no longer belonging to who I once thought I was. I'm no longer living my life in the future of what could be. And I've been living in this beautiful moment of the presence and in my heart. And now I just feel kind of blah, like stagnant, and I want you to know that I myself have also gone through this. And when I went through this, it was almost like I felt kind of numb in a way, kind of blah. And I wasn't getting the downloads like I used to get. And I wasn't seeing the psychic impressions that I normally get. And it was very difficult for me. I felt extremely lost. I felt like no one could really understand why I wasn't really in my energy anymore and why that was. It wasn't until deep in meditation one day that I realized that it was because I was still breaking free from the matrix. And I was getting a lot of downloads, right? A lot of psychic impressions, like I said, but now it was really time for me to integrate more, because with the new ascension and with the new frequencies, I needed to really integrate more, right? I really needed to have my body upgrade, my DNA match what new realities I was living in and new timelines. And I really needed to shift more. And so I realized I needed to take a back seat for a moment and hang out in the void. And I get it. Being in the void can be rather confusing because it's like, am I meant to be here? Am I not meant to be here? What is kind of happening to me? And I want you to know that being in the void is very normal. And you may sit there for however long is needed to update yourself, right? And knowing that you're not being blocked, but you're actually building, right? We are integrating those new frequencies, these new vibrations. And when I came out on the other side, I was stronger than ever. My energy was top notch. And I was like, okay, I understood why I went through that period. It was funny because at certain points, people would call me for psychic impressions, and I would pick up on somebody else, right? Like, if you're a psychic, you know what I'm talking about. So, like, somebody's like, oh, can you pick up information on Skylar, for example? Well, I was picking up information about a Skylar, but it actually, what that person was trying for me to pick up was about a dog. And I was like, okay, that was so interesting because I picked up actually on a different Skylar. And so, you're going to have those confusing times where you're like, I usually am 100% spot on with my intuition, with my psychic impressions, with my empathy. And when we go through this period of upgrading ourselves and moving into the new human with these new frequencies and vibrations, we're going to let go of the old part of us. So some of that is attached to the old self. So you might be in a little bit of a limbo with that. And when I came out of that, like I said, I came out very coherent. My skills, my abilities were like top notch. And I've been going ever since. And so you have to realize that being in the void for a minute is going to happen. And what we can do is, while we're in the void, is that we can then go deeper into meditation and really integrate more of what is being given to us and shown to us. And that way, when we can integrate that, we can maybe potentially speed up the process. I'm not saying that that's going to necessarily work in your case, but in my case, it tended to help. And sometimes on our spiritual journey, we can go, up and down, right? And so sometimes that is not one time thing. Sometimes that can happen multiple times. And the stuckness is a recalibration, not a punishment for who you are. And I think a lot of times when we compare ourselves to others, it's the thief of joy, right? The famous saying. And just because somebody else's gifts may not seem to be turned off at the moment, or they may seem to be really spot on with who they are moving through their ascension and their spiritual path, they went through it as well. Everybody kind of goes through that. And we have to really remain in tune during that time, really remain in the present moment at that time, because it can sometimes take you in two separate directions. And you can either come out of that, like I said, stronger than ever, really very gifted, able to share your gifts with the world, or you can say, I no longer want to do this, or, maybe go into insanity perhaps. And I've seen both, being on this path for a long time and involved in many spiritual circles, that you can take one of two paths when you're awakening and when you're going through these different periods of ascension. And sometimes we get into our mind a lot about this. That's why remaining in the present moment is so imperative, because we're thinking to ourselves, we need to figure it out. Well, you don't need to figure out anything, because if you try to figure it out, it's going to continue to keep you stuck. And we don't want to remain there. We want to remain coming out and remaining in our power as a co-creator. And we need to let go of control, because as soon as we let go of control, we can then begin to surrender. And we can then begin to heal, and we can then begin to really move into the present moment of who we are. So, stop trying to escape where you are. It's not a prison for you. It truly is meant to upgrade yourself, move yourself into the higher vibrations. If you think about it, and it's like, for example, if you were in school and they said to you, okay, well, we're going to move you up a few grades. Okay. And you're like, okay, well, I've been used to this classroom, this way of living. And they're like, okay, well, you're in second grade and we're going to move you up to sixth grade. Okay. Well, the vibe's going to be completely different in that environment. You're going to have to get used to older kids living in a different, way, talking in a different way, learning different things. And although you are very smart and very intelligent, you're still going to need time to integrate who that new reality is that you're going into. It's just like if you were to move to a new country, for example, or not even a new country, if you live in the United States, even a new state, regardless, if you were moving to a new area, it would be the same way. You would have to get used to how they live, how they talk, what the culture is, what the vibe is, what everybody's kind of doing, and realize, okay, I need time to integrate this. I'm going to, yes, you're going to need time to figure it out, and you're going to need to sit there and be like, okay, oh, I'm observing this, right? I'm going to watch how people are. Oh, okay. Yeah, I get how they are. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to scope things out. Oh, that's where the grocery store is. That's where the post office is. And you're going to realize, like, okay, that's how I can integrate this into my life more, right? Then you can venture out, and then you can, make friends and talk with people, and, and everything that is involved with that. And that's all to say is that it's very similar, because you're just in this period right now where you're integrating, you're surrendering, you're upgrading, and that you are enough as a person, and that everything is going to be okay. And so if this resonated with you, would love you to comment down below and say, I trust the pause. And then I invite you to just completely surrender to what is, and this complete process, and knowing you're not alone. And know that we are here with you on this path. And we too have been through it before, and we might go through it again. And that's okay. Thank you so much for watching. Like the video, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, my